You know, it's funny how sometimes a single building, or even just a few words carved in stone, can completely change how you see the world. Today, we're diving into the story of one of London's most iconic landmarks and well, the pretty shocking message it declares right in the heart of global finance.
So let's set the scene. Our story kicks off on a very specific day, late February 1995. We're in London, and of course it's gray, it's cloudy, it's drizzling. The person whose story we're following is working in the financial district, just taking a lunchtime walk through those ancient, winding city streets. And he's having one of those moments. I think we've all been there. He's walking down Threadneedle Street, surrounded by all this history and all this money, and he's just thinking to himself, what am I even doing here? What's the point of all this? Just feeling totally adrift in this massive, overwhelming city.
And then, one of those weird little things happens that you can't really explain. It wasn't some booming voice from the heavens or anything, just a feeling. A quiet, inner nudge telling him to stop, turn around, and look back over his shoulder. A simple little impulse that was about to change his whole perspective.
So what did he see? What was it that made him stop? He saw a building that is, for all intents and purposes, a temple of trade, a monument to commerce that's been at the absolute center of London for centuries. He saw the Royal Exchange.
So this is it, the Royal Exchange. And you got to understand, since it was founded way back in 1571, this building has been the beating heart of international business. It's where merchants met, where fortunes were won and lost, and where London really cemented itself as a global financial powerhouse.
But as he stood there, it wasn't the giant columns or the fancy statues that grabbed his attention. Nope. His eyes were pulled to this one small detail, something carved way up high, right at the peak of the building's facade. He had to squint to make it out. But there it was, a set of words, a powerful declaration, sitting right there looking down on the very nerve center of the world's financial markets. And it was a message that seemed totally out of place. And this was it. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. It's a direct quote from the Bible, from Psalm 24. And for the man in our story, standing there in the rain, it was like a lightning bolt, a sudden, comforting realization that even here, in the world of high finance, maybe a bigger story was being told. Now, the story of this building and that inscription is just incredible. It's a story of absolute resilience. I mean, this place hasn't just sat there quietly. It has endured, been totally destroyed, and then reborn time and time again.
Okay, so get this for a dramatic history. It's founded in 1571. Then, in 1666, it's completely wiped out by the Great Fire of London. So they rebuild it, only for it to burn down again in 1838. The building that stands there today, the one with that incredible inscription, literally rose from the ashes in 1844.
So you start to see the amazing paradox here, right? In the very heart of a city built on profit, ambition, and human achievement, you have this monument that's basically shouting that, in the end, none of this really belongs to us. It's a temple of trade announcing divine ownership.
And that paradox, that tension between human commerce and divine ownership, it points us toward a much deeper concept, something the source material calls the divine exchange.
The idea comes from a verse in the New Testament. It describes what you could call the ultimate transaction. Jesus, who is spiritually rich, chose to become poor for our sake so that we, through his poverty, could become spiritually rich. It totally flips our normal idea of economics on its head.
And when you put the two side by side, the contrast is wow. At the Royal Exchange, right, deals are negotiated. The goal is earthly profit, and it often benefits a select few. But the divine exchange? That's a gift, not a negotiation. It's not about profit, it's about peace. And it's not for a few people, it's for everyone.
So what that inscription on the Royal Exchange is really suggesting is that this principle isn't just for theology class. It implies that every single business deal, every transaction, happens under a larger moral and even divine order.
And if you think about it, this isn't some newfangled idea. The Bible has always had a lot to say about economics. It calls out dishonest business practices. It warns bosses who don't pay their workers what they're owed, and it even lays out these amazing principles of debt forgiveness called the Jubilee.
So the big takeaway here is that from this perspective, there's no such thing as a morally neutral market. It's not just a value-free zone of supply and demand. Markets are actually arenas for stewardship, places where our choices have real moral weight. And this wasn't just a London thing. The source brings up this fantastic parallel all the way from South Africa.
The Cape Town Chamber of Commerce had this historic motto in Latin, Custos Rera Morum, and you know what that means? Guardian of things and morals. They were explicitly linking the two.
Okay, so let's tie all of this together. We've got the Royal Exchange in London and this big idea of the divine exchange. How do they come together to deliver one single message?
Well, here's how it connects. The Royal Exchange, with its whole history of fire and rebirth, is this incredible symbol of human ambition and the world of commerce. But the cross, that reveals the ultimate transaction, the divine exchange, where the currency isn't profit, it's grace.
And that brings us right back to where we started, to that inscription spotted by one person on a random rainy day. It's still there, and it's still quietly declaring a truth that rises above all the noise and the hustle of the marketplace down below. Which really just leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If we actually take that inscription seriously, if the earth and all its commerce really does belong to God, how does that change things? How does that change the way we work and trade and do business day in and day out?